This is Envivo STUDIO. It can run on the same hardware platform as Envivo Replay, but not at the same time, but it can run on the same hardware. On the left-hand side are the inputs, then comes a preview panel, and the air panel, and your output channels. And so when we select the different outputs, it changes color to let us know in the main air channel which one we're looking at, anytime that you select any one of those. Then you have bins, and you have, again, 9 bins, just like Envivo Replay, that allow you to look at them 2 at a time if you want to look at 2 bins at the same time, or just 1 bin, and you can scroll within there. There's 99 positions in each bin, and each one of those positions, or slots we like to call them, can have a clip, a still animation, a keyable animation with a key layer, or it could be a list, or even something called a group, and we'll cover each one of those of what those are. So to begin with, utilizing the live inputs as they're coming in, we can have up to 8 channels. In this hardware configuration, you could have 2 in, 6 out, 4 in, 4 out, 3 by 3, 1 by 1, whichever, just a combination of those. So in this case, you're seeing 3 inputs and 4 outputs. So if I select a camera that I want to call up into the preview panel, I can look at it, I can slow it down, I can mark it in and out, and actually treat it, because these are live recordings, so I could clip something from these live inputs and be able to make a clip if I wanted to, just again by marking it in, marking it out, and either way hitting add clip or picking where I wanted that to go. So those are some functions that you can utilize within this as well. And then next up is, of course, then taking that to the air channel. So just by hitting the take button, then it goes to the air channel that was selected. And I can select all of them just by holding the shift key on my keyboard, and I can select them all, and here you see there's a thick border around each one of those. And when I hit take, then of course it feeds that same camera to all of those at the same time. And I can go ahead and continue to put something in the preview window, hit take. I can go back to something and actually back it up to where I want it to start playing from. So if I want it right before this gentleman starts swinging his arms, then I can hit the take button and it plays from that position. So this allows me to really find exactly where I want content to start, so I don't miss something that's important to show on the air channel. All right, so that's some functionality that we have as well. All right, so that's selecting multiple channels and that they're all following the same thing. The same goes for if we're going to call up a background, that we can put a background on all of those. And what you see here are layers. On the air channel, we have something called back, and then we have a main, and then we have a top. So in essence, we could add something on top of each one of those. A live input tends to always be in the back channel, and then we can put other elements on top of that. So in the case that we want to remove something that's already been placed on there, we can hit the untake button and it will remove that. And again, when I hit take, it puts it on top of it. Now I can still take yet another keyable element and bring this up. And so this was just a PNG that was imported. It has a transparency associated with it when it was created, and that transparency already shows up. It's part of that still image. And so when we actually take this to the next level, it comes on top of it. So it's now a third layer. And at any time we want to take something out of the middle, we can take it off the back, and we can put that keyable right over that as well. So, and we can lock these in place so that they actually don't go away. If it was a score bug or some different type of animation that you had to have in the whole time, you could always leave that in. All right, so that's just putting things on top of those layers. Now, what if it's something that's a keyable transition? This actually came in as 2 clips. So there's a fill key, there's the key, and there's the fill. And if I actually scrub into this, you can see, yep, there's the animation that I was looking for. Here's the key channel animation that I was looking at as well. When we look at the properties of this particular clip and we look at the checkerboard here to see the different layers, you can see the main, then you can see the key, and then you can see the composite, which shows you a transparency with the checkerboard background. And so what we'd like to do is then at least cue this up to the top, and we hit take, and here you can see that it actually puts the graphic element on all angles as well. Now, one thing that we can do is we can actually make it so that if this was tied to a switcher and driven by Louth or VDCP protocol, we could actually have just the key layer be on player 1, and then the key channel itself be on player 2. And so you could dedicate those channels to the switcher and allow the switcher to call stuff up numerically anyway. So we can always call that up and fire it off that way. And the way that would look is, let's go ahead and remove this and do the untake. So again, if I wanted to call up something numerically, I just hit 116 in this case to call up this graphic element and hit the enter button or the take button on the keyboard, and then that takes it to that channel. And then at any time that I want to call up that keyable element again, 114, and call it up, and it would do it on top of that layer if that's what I wanted. In this case, if I wanted to untake this, I can untake this one as well, call up that one effect again, 114, and have it do the transition on top of it. So again, that's not exactly how everybody would use it. I think most of the time it would be a split key, but it's just to show you that there's that layer or that effect that can take on top of the live video sources. Same thing that if I'm going to use something that was generated by After Effects and it was exported as a QuickTime RLE, which has the built-in alpha channel as well. So this came in as a single file, but it obviously has a key layer here associated with it. So you can see there's the main, the key, and the composite. And then when we hit take, then of course it goes on top of that, that next layer. And so we can also turn those into loops. And so here you see I turn the loop icon, that if I actually go into this section here, we can turn the loop on and off. And in the event that this was turned off, and we actually took it to air like this, I'm going to go ahead and hit take again, and the loop was forgotten, we can actually come over here and turn this loop back on. And so that just allows you the ability to do it last second in the event that this panel was hidden. So one thing I wanted to show you and make sure that you understand is how to import content and actually build a key and fill at the same time, how you merge them together. So I select an empty slot and I'm going to go out here to my drive, and it can be, again, an external drive, a local drive, a USB drive, whatever. And I'm just going to select the content that I want to bring in and hit open, and here you can see the files actually coming in, which is really nice. We see the thumbnail already, and when we go to the properties of this and we look at what it delivered, obviously that was just the fill. And if we look here on this other one, it's just the key. So what we want to do is take the key and drag it over and put it in this area to actually let it land. So we have the video at one layer, the key element on the other one, and a composite. And anytime that we want to check that, we can just scrub into this and again check the key, check the fill, and you also have these plus and minus elements on the sides that you can actually adjust them. So if it didn't line up perfectly, especially if I recorded it from my live channels, my live inputs, and I recorded it baseband and I need to make a clip, it gets really difficult to line things up sometimes on a lot of different systems that are out there. Not with this. We're actually adjusting it and getting it right on by just looking at that composite and being able to scrub in and then make that adjustment based on either way the key layer or the video layer, whichever one you'd want to adjust. So one more time is just I'm going to go ahead and cue that and then hit take, and you can see that the element actually comes in, dissolves in off the top, it runs through its animation, and then I can remove it at any time. So in talking about stills, one of the things that we can do is import a still animation or a still image that's either way a JPEG, a bitmap, a PNG, and we can bring these in and they are infinite. So they follow the rule of what the default duration is for a clip. In this case, it's set to 5 seconds. But we can also change that amount of what we want that to be. But once it's imported, we can actually make it infinitely long. So I can just stretch this out and I can go ahead and say, you know, I need this to be 1 minute long. And once I get to 1 minute here on my counter, I could hit the out point. And now this is actually 1 minute long. I mean, it's 59 seconds, but you get the idea. So that's 1 minute for that animation. And that's kind of important because then I can put that into a list. And if I want to manually advance through the list 1 minute gives me plenty of time if maybe there's only a 30-second read voiceover that has to be done with that for the announcers. So as they take that into the arena, they could have somebody talking about this next event that's coming to the arena. And at any time that they need to go back to the video, they can just unselect it and untake it, and then it goes back. And notice that I do have it set to be a dissolve. We can also change this to be a cut, so that anytime that we want to cut content on or off, we can make that happen as well. And same thing goes for cutting our live cameras. What we were always doing is looking at it in the preview window. And so some operators don't want that. They really want everything they touch to be instantaneous to play. So we can put this pin into place into the take button. That essentially holds the take button down. And now when we select a camera, it will take automatically to those different channels that are selected. So there you can see the upper right hand corner is always changing on everything that I select, even if it's a still, even if it's an animation that goes on top. We can take those instantly to those channels as well. And we have the option to do also the difference between the transition on and off. So an element can be set when it goes into a playback of how it's going to behave. So if we go to the properties for this, we can actually say in its transition, do we want to dissolve on and then cut off? So those would be some options as well for each one of those that you set up. What I want to talk about next is going to be groups. And a group can be set up in a manner that we want to target content to specific outputs. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and build a new group. So I'm going to select the group icon here, and this brings up the group panel. And in that panel, then I can set content to play, like I said, on specific channels. So in this case, it's going to play on channel 1. I'm going to have this background play on maybe 2 and 3. And then the sky is going to play yet on the last one as well. So I'm going to have that one play on channel 4. All right, so we have some different choices of what we want to do there. So when we call up this group now and we hit take, it actually goes and does exactly what we want it to do. In this case, I also want to set it to be a dissolve. So these are on and offs for that group that we can actually then cover everything up that we want to and have it play specific animation or specific content to those targeted channels. And that includes, commercial lists or highlight packages, anything that you need to play out on those channels. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of these again and untake the animation. And so that is how to build a group. And a group can consist of anything that is in those items. It can be a list. It could be a live camera with a key element on top of it. It could be an animation. It could be a moving background. Whatever it needs to be, you just drag and drop out of your bin and put that right into the group. So I did mention lists quite a few times, so let's build a new list. So in this case, I'm going to choose the list icon. And here again, we can go ahead and put content into that list. And just like Envivo Replay, we can go ahead and change the order of content in the list. We can add to the list while it's playing. So I'm just going to go ahead and queue up the first item here and hit take. And it's playing this commercial in this moment or timeout during the game action. And I can just continue to add content to that. Again, here's my 1 minute background that I had for that still animation. At any time that I want to manually advance through the list, I just need to select the next item. And when I'm ready, I hit take. Or I just let the list play as I want to get through that entire list on its own, whatever I want it to do. So we have that ability, again, just to do it all on the fly, take content underneath so we can change the camera angle underneath what's playing on that lower layer. And really you have that flexibility of driving all of that. So hopefully this shows you the power and the flexibility of what we can do in Envivo Studio already today. I think it's pretty powerful in just what it first started out to be, which really its intent was to replace a still store, to replace a clip store, to replace a spot box. Any one of those items on their own cost as much, if not a whole lot more, than one Envivo Studio. But as we started to evolve the product, we realized really what was powerful and how we could do this at a better way to make operators more efficient in their job position, as well as a standalone product that really held its own in the market space.